Hello and welcome to the channel. Firewood, single most important commodity that I have to have. Without firewood we can't survive. We're 100% fired on wood. Heat, water, life, wood. So the way that you can see I only prepare wood for ourselves. We've never had enough wood to even consider selling. So this is all for our own use. No, it's not the most efficient way with my single splitter, no conveyor belts, but it's what we've got. And when I arrived here 5 years ago, I was pulling dry wood off the mountain with my back and a strap and cutting it with the worst chainsaw in the world and splitting it by hand. So we've come on a long way. We've obviously got many chainsaws, splitters, saws, a tractor, snowmobile, sleds, everything we need, but this process is still manually intensive as it is stacking the stillages. So these are about 1 face cord a piece, and I need 70 of these stacked up to dry through the winter, plus my woodshed, which is 1 face cord, 1.2 cubic meters. The bigger ones are 1.2 face cord, which is 1.5 cubic meters, there or thereabouts. This is a bigger one because it's double stacked. Anyway, so I've got an advantage this year. I had an advantage this year. The advantage has been lost, but before I lost the advantage, I had the advantage this year of being able to get in early. On the run up to Christmas, we had 2 or 3 weeks of temperatures where all you could do was survive. You know, we was below -30 for days at a time. That's -30 Celsius, 2 degrees, 1 degree 0. And we have temperatures like that, but not that early on in the year, so that just caught everybody on the unawares. Our snowfall has been low, as those of you that join me on a regular basis know, and I've had the opportunity to cut and start splitting in January. Why? Winter is my biggest drying time for timber. The timber dries faster and better in the winter than any other season. So we could just touch on that. Seasoned wood. Seasoned wood means it's dried through multiple seasons. In an ideal world, 4 seasons. If it's really big and it's dense and it's hardwood, oak, maple, 6 to 8 seasons would be perfect. It would give you around 15 to 13% moisture content. The tightness of the fibres in the hardwood means it burns slow and hot. You need less of it, produces more BTUs, more heat. But here, our weather is so dry for the entire winter period that the wood, the moisture within the timber is drawn out. And there's two ways it's drawn out, but it's drawn out making winter my best drying time. And here in the far north, we only really have 2 seasons. Technically, there's a spring and an autumn, technically, but winter seems to lead into summer. We go from snow in the yard into May, early June, to summer. And end of summer, September, October, winter starts. So there are 4 seasons wherever you are in the world, but the higher up and the lower down you are, the seasons, you get 2 seasons. So both seasons, our longest season of all seasons, I'm going to get sick of saying seasons in a minute, is winter. Between 6 and 7 months, sometimes 5, but very rarely. So it's important that I get as much wood split as I can here in January, because I've still got the rest of January, March, April, May. That's when our moisture level could rise during melt, depending on how long the melt is and how much snow we've had. Would depend on how much moisture is, and the drying process does slow during that time. Providing you've got it off the ground and got it covered, as you can see I do, they'll continue to dry. And then we're into summer and autumn, and that means early winter. I'll have 4 seasons into this wood I'm doing now, and it'll be ready to burn. Do I like burning within the same 12-month period? Now, if I could get more wood, I wouldn't need to, but it seems I always have this fight. It takes me 3 to 4 months every winter to process enough timber, to cut enough timber, to haul enough timber for the following 6 to 7 months. So we use a splitter, and then this is just part of the process. So I've sawn some of this up. Some of this is quite big, which is quite rare, because I've been thinning, as those that you've watched my previous videos know. So the big ones are rare, most of them are smaller. And we do that on the saw. So now you've seen the splitter, we'll move over to the saw. Maybe you haven't seen the splitter yet, because I've just done the introduction. And that means that's full, but anyway, we'll go to the saw. So this is my saw. Me and my Sarah, we purchased these on the first year we were here together. This splitter, which has been converted from a hydraulic tractor run splitter with a hydraulic pump on it, which means it doesn't need to be connected to a tractor, but I can if I need to. And this saw, I'd never seen a saw set up quite like this before I come out. I'm not sure, wouldn't say they're unique to this place, but I've seen a lot of them here and not necessarily anywhere else. And the reason that this is a good thing for us is because we're not in the US, we're not in Canada, we don't have large trees here. Everything is small. The big stuff, sure, you cut up with a chainsaw because it's quicker, but the small stuff, it's just dangerous cutting up with a chainsaw. And I cut up and burn stuff that most people wouldn't even consider firewood, because that's what we've got. And the resources here are not finite, or are finite, if you just needlessly waste everything. The planet is already, do I want to go here? The planet's already suffering, this beautiful planet of ours, with overpopulation. Way, way, way overpopulated. Those of you that are awake will know this, and will know that the planet is struggling and is going to continue to struggle. And at some point, there's going to be so many people, it's going to end. It can't sustain the population it's got. So don't use any more than you need. There's no point. So use everything. And all of this, including the tops, great BTUs, great energy from it. And I just can't leave it lying there. And that's where this comes in. You can see over there, the thinnings. It's dangerous to be doing some of the small stuff with a chainsaw, and time consuming. It's actually quite quicker on the saw. So that's what we use, that's what we've got. Again, there's no conveyor belt, don't have one of those. I have to manually exit this. And the wooden crate there, this is for my friend, the man that let us cut from his land. I'm filling these. These are what we, can you even see them? Yeah, you can just see the corner of it. These are what we took from the airport, and we stacked up behind here in another video, earlier one, salvaging stuff from the airport, and already they're coming into use. So they've been stacked up 10 weeks, and now I found a use for them. So they hold about 1.6 cubic metres. I've already filled 2 of those. I'll continue to fill them. Now he's a small, he burns small stuff. So like this, I don't need to split this. I can just cut it down into much shorter lengths. So everything he has to have smaller and shorter than ours because of how he burns, or his appliances that he's got. It's a big stick, you don't want that. Surely, okay, you do. He does. So that's what we're doing there. We're filling these up, and then the bigger stuff goes into these for us. Right, that said, I'm going to have to put my earplugs in now because this is one of the noises that gives me, keeps me awake at night. Can you jump up and spin around? Can you do that? Jump up and spin around? Yeah. So that's where the saw comes in. If I had some money and maybe a little bit more time, I could put conveyors and stations and make them all into one thing. I don't need to. It's keeps the cake line down. Yeah. So I'm still recovering from a couple of major operations, and the cake line needs to reduce a lot. So yeah, that's how that works. And the more I get cut and split through the winter, then the quicker it will dry. And cutting in the winter, I'm going to teach half the world to suck eggs here, but cutting in the winter is the best time to cut trees because they're already sapless, or they have a severely reduced level of sap, fluid, liquid inside them. So if you cut them when they're already at rest, they've got less in them. You can't cut in spring. The birch doubles in weight in spring because of the amount of moisture it's drawing, and there's a whole subject in the different fibres in softwood and hardwood which allow softwood to dry quicker and faster, and why it's a different weight, and how the fibres are fibrous tubes in hardwood and retain more of the fluid, and therefore you split them in a different way. And the lengths of firewood, quite important. Right. The longer the length of firewood, the longer it takes to dry. Let me show you. So how do I know what lengths I'm cutting on my saw? Well, I have them marked here. "70 centimetres. That's mine. This is the Colonel's, and this is Thomas's, and that's on the length from the line of cut to where it is to maximise their length of burn time. Colonel's is there and mine's there. So see what I'm doing for Thomas. Let's make an example here. So the moisture is not just going to draw from the faces here, it's also going to draw from the ends, because within the bark, the fibres, they're like straws. So whilst moisture can be drawn from all around, it's also going to draw from the end first. So this, quite naturally, is going to take much longer to dry than this, and the ends may well start to crack, and it may still start to look dry, but there's still moisture in the middle. So can I get away with seasoning that 3 seasons, 2 seasons? Yes, 4 to 6 seasons. It's just the way it is. So I also turn on my wood when it's split smiley side up, because the moisture won't come out through the bark. It will only come out through the split face and through the ends. So you stack them smiley side up. What happens with your long ones, make sure they're well seasoned. The moisture will come out of these just as well as it will these, just takes longer. And since this is going for a full 4 to 5 season dry, then I can cut my bigger ones bigger and not split these. Otherwise you split these and these just burn too fast, and I don't want to split them. These are good for being able to stack up the furnace. So this morning, every single morning, is the cleaning of the furnace after the night before. I give the flues that run through the top and the back a good cleaning every few days, but this is a quick clean out, get the furnace lit again. Yeah, she's not completely cold from last night. It's quite important that I get it lit quickly every morning, and I have the same routine every morning. So I stick the vacuum nozzle in there whilst cleaning out here, so that all the ash doesn't go back up my flow tubes and sit in there, which of course immediately I push the backdraft in is going to go up the flue and sit in the chimney. So I take out all the ash, everything else. She's still nice and warm. I didn't shut it down until just after midnight. And now basically we're ready to light. Yesterday's ash is out, and it is just like an intermediate clean, a morning thing in between my big cleans, just to get the ash and the dust out. And then our usual routine of grabbing a bit of birch bark from behind the camera. Now we've got some weird atmospherics going on outside today. Atmospherics is not something I've talked about before. Given our height and our varied weather conditions, we suffer from atmospheric conditions to the point that some days if you don't warm the chimney, it won't fire. The smoke will just come back down and it will just fill this room and it will not burn. And we're at quite a high altitude, and that plays on atmospherics as well. Although when you're getting into atmospherics, that's a whole science unto itself. So because I have the furnace isolated from the chimney overnight, in as far as I have the rear draft fully closed, now that lets a little bit of heat up which is a heat loss from the furnace and a slight warming of the chimney, but with our extreme temperatures, there you go, we'll let that rip for a minute and send some heat up the chimney, and that will help it draw. So this is my first job every day. Every day, well, that's not quite true. First job every day is to get Casper out. So, as soon as I wake up, I immediately get dressed, irrespective of the temperature outside, and I get him outside. But just before we go outside, I put the coffee on, so that when I came back in, because there's nothing worse than within 6 or 7 minutes of getting out of bed, you're in -30 or 0, depending on where in the world you are, Celsius, Fahrenheit, whatever it is, it's exceedingly cold. Grab a quick coffee, light the furnace. First job every day. First job every day to light the furnace. Last job every day is to put the furnace out, or put it to bed as I call it. So we don't heat wood to keep a room warm, as those of you watch the channel know. This is our survival unit. Without this, we die. Without this, we have no heat, we have no hot water, we have no comfort whatsoever. So this has to run. And there are far more efficient, complicated furnaces available. There we go. That's that on its initial burn. And we'll burn it hot like that. Get the chimney nice and hot. I like to get the chimney up to about 150 degrees at the back of the furnace, and then it will creep up to around 250 degrees at the back of the furnace, and that will ensure I get sufficient heat at the top. Now our chimney, that's 15 metres straight up from the bottom. And whilst it has a stainless steel flue liner that I installed, and it's insulated that I installed, right at the very top there's a little bit of exposure, and that's where your creosote will build up, and eventually it will close the chimney if you don't keep it clean. So I had a few comments in the last video I did about the regularity to which I clean the chimney, and you can put this in there and you can put that in there, and I use a chemical. Right, which is supposed to turn the soot and the creosote into some fine stuff that flies up the chimney. Yeah, you can talk about cleaning your chimney once a year or twice a year if you don't need it for your own personal survival. This is imperative to us. So I clean my chimney every month, and I will maintain cleaning my chimney every month, especially through the winter. For those of you who don't know, once this is lit, it will stay lit for 6, depending on how long the winter is, 6 or 7 months. So it's a vital part of my everyday life, and it needs tending to every hour and a half maximum. You can go 2 hours, you can really pack it out, but on a normal day, tend to it every hour, hour and a half. Anyway, that's pretty much the process. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to catch me on the next one if you're not already. Thanks for watching.